Imagine a place where the boundaries of age, industry, background, and culture melt away, replaced by a shared desire to explore the depths of our collective experiences. Here, on the open, shaded porch, amidst an atmosphere of serenity and tranquility, leaders from all walks of life gather to share their stories, the stories that shape their very beings and doings. This is the Knowledge Mindfulness Porch with Laila and Marouf.
Welcome back to my conversation with Dr. Sanjay Sarma, the CEO, President, and Dean of the Asia School of Business, and a professor of mechanical engineering and the Sloan School of Management at MIT. He's been talking about his journey that started as a young boy attending the Indian Institute of Technology to running MIT's digital learning platforms and so many of the creative educational initiatives at MIT. Sanjay, on a previous podcast, I was speaking with Richard Hakel, the chairman of Hakel Hospital in Lebanon. He shared with me the story of him attending a class that was taught by ex-Manchester United manager Sir Alex Ferguson. And Richie asked him why he was so successful building Man U, yet the team failed after he left. This story brings up an interesting point about how executive education prepares a person to become a CEO, but not what happens after they leave. What do you think of that now that you're heading the Asia School of Business?
I think let's take a step back. If you take training, what do you train for? What's the difference between education or learning and training? Training is what you do to someone. I'm going to train you to do this job. Learning is I'm going to learn to do the job. In other words, my desire to learn is driven by a higher motive than your desire to transact something. I could learn it because I'm passionate about it. I could learn it because I want to earn money with it. It's more authentic, actually, learning. It's pull as opposed to push. Point number 2, let's say that a company trains a young person to work at a machine shop. They only care about that first job. That's to your point. They don't care if that young person in 5 years is motivated to leave and wants to do something else. They don't care. Because in fact, they don't want that person to leave. Because that's an interchangeable person. But in our higher education, our motive is not to make the person successful at the first job, but to make them successful in their lives. So there's a difference, I think, in our motives as educational institutions, at least in theory, compared to training. So when a CEO trains to do his or her job, they're training to figure out, how do I hire people? How do I fire people? How do I report to the market? But they're not really...
Functionalities.
Functionality, right? But not deeper stuff, potentially. And the deeper stuff is our responsibility, which is why it's also our responsibility to be frank with ourselves. When, as we discussed earlier, when we waver from the path we are sworn to follow. We are sort of sworn to follow it because we have things like tenure and status. So we do have a social responsibility as well. Now, our vision with the Asia School of Business is to do 2 things. It's to create leaders who are both very principled, have the right instincts, right? Who can transform a company, can transform an organization, but are also thinking about themselves and their people in the long term, in a nurturing way, not in a transactional way. Business schools have a mixed reputation that, there's a study I came across recently that actually it was told to me by a well-known economist that I haven't actually found the study, but the basic idea is that if you have business school graduates run a company, it's not as if the company does better, it's just that the costs go down. Other companies, the costs may go up, but the profits go up a lot more, right?
Yes.
So it's not that the impact need not be terribly positive in some respects. So what we are trying to do is create really thoughtful business leaders who can transform, but also be very principled about it. That's one aspect. And the other aspect is we're also giving them some core strengths so they can be the generalist, but also through our quaternary education offering, Agile Continuous Education, they can specialize throughout their lives. So this is sort of how we are sort of rethinking business education.
I don't know why when I think about it, I think about the word interdisciplinary a lot nowadays, a lot. it doesn't mean only mixing subjects, right? I mean, different fields, different expertise and all that. For me, even, it's more like looking at it from, like you said, why educate? Why am I here? What am I going to offer? So for me, looking at the knowledge mindfulness concept, I think about it in two different ways. I think about it in terms of what I read somewhere about the subjectivity. So it's the subject himself, it's the human being, it's the leader himself and what he can bring in, his presence, his relation, and working and understanding himself. And of course, that reflects also his competencies, his qualifications, and then the culture, the social context that he's in and how much he can do that. That's on one. And of course, when we talk about interdisciplinary, also we're talking about critical thinking, collaboration, reflection. So much of that I think about, I read about, because I feel these are ingredients that are available right now. It's just how do we put them together in a way to give that simpler answer or solution to a complex world and complex problems. And I feel that is some things that we're struggling in now because the complexity of the world out there is like crazy. Why? Exponential technology. Why? AI now is like the competition, right? In so many ways. And we can see that. I was looking at The Economist, I think their April issue, and I like the title. It's like, they said, the wise worry. We need to be wisely worried about this AI thing. But there's a lot to talk about when we want to talk about AI, because it's a reality now, because everyone is talking about Chat GPT, and it's that user-friendly, let's say, thing that everyone is jumping into without thinking twice of what is the pros and cons of this technology. Like everything else, by the way. It's not like, but what I see, and maybe you can add so much to that, what I see is it's like a choice of ignorance that we're seeing right now in the world. They are choosing not to want to know. And that's, I feel, more dangerous than not knowing. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. I mean, think about it. You've just said interdisciplinary. What does discipline mean? It means a field. It also means a penalty to someone who hasn't done something right. In other words, we have associated education with swim lanes, fields with swim lanes. And that was fine if everyone lived in swim lanes. But we don't live in swim lanes anymore, because you and I are using AI and AI is using us. And AI is showing up in our smartphones, in our cars, in looking at our resumes, in our voice recognition, in your Apple Watch, the thing that reads your health. It's everywhere. It is touching your humanity. It is touching your biology. It's touching other people's biology. Will the Apple Watch work on someone who's dark-skinned, or will it not go through? So by definition, we're in this weird time where, in fact, we have to use this word, which is no discipline. We should never be interdisciplinary, right? Which is breaking the discipline, right? Breaking the rules that have been set forth to us. So I actually think that we have drawn boxes around us, and now we're saying, oh my God, we've got to think outside the box. But we've spent all these years drawing boxes around ourselves and around people, saying, you will do this, and you will do that, and you will do that, and suddenly expose them to a world where they need to do everything. Because, when climate change happens, or when there's a cybersecurity event, or when there is a geopolitical conflict, they're not ready for it. So one of the changes that education has to undergo, in some respects, more profound change than the first one I listed, which is continuous education. The other point I made, which is critical thinking, which is really developing peripheral vision and being interdisciplinary or being undisciplined in a nice way.
Yes, But there's one thing about that I think about is I always ask myself what it means to be human in an AI age. And I think you touched on it about the disciplinary thing. When I was telling you about this shortening the distance between our head, hearts, and soul, I think I refer to in the book about when I say parapsychology, spirit, soul, what I really am referring to is our core values, our core human values in so many ways. And for me, just lately, it was an aha moment that maybe these are the breaks. This is where the breaks, this is where our creativity stems from our heads. There's so many components we synthesize. And we are limitless in that synthesis, if you can say, right? But then you need some kind of a break where it can overlook and guide that limitless creativity, right? In many ways, that comes from our morality. It comes from our ethics of what we can do and what we can't do, or it should not because it's harming X and Y. So there is that kind of balance for us as humans, supposedly, of course, if we can work on that morality, if, we can enhance it in so many ways. But that's, I think, what distinguishes us as human beings, because we do have that ability, which is not the case with AI, with the machine. So the machine can synthesize more than us. It's that augmented kind of intelligence, but it's like, I feel it's a delusion in so many ways because we think about it as intelligence. And I think of intelligence, personally, my perspective is really augmented human capabilities and how we can put that together and apply it. So I don't know, what's your take about this interdisciplinary also in terms of maybe studying and getting into fields like philosophy, like we are in the psychology thing, definitely. But I feel like the business schools are talking about psychology in terms of how do we control the behavior of an employee in a way, not the opposite. What do you think?
First of all, I don't believe that where AI is intelligent. I think it's, by the way, I've always argued it's a false term. It should be called not artificial intelligence, but something else like augmented intelligence. MIT was involved in that revolution and it was hyped up. It's scary now because it's finally shown up. And the reason it's so scary to us is because language is one of the fundamental things that separates human beings from even the primates. And suddenly this thing spits out language and you can have a conversation with it. And if you use ChatGPT, which I'm sure you have, and most people have, you can talk to it. It actually sounds sensible. And when people freaked out when these things had hallucinations, they freaked out because actually humans can be like that. But guess what? It's still a machine. It is just a predictive typer. It's, when you type words on your phone and there's a next word, that suggestion. This is just an advanced version of that. That's really all it is. So we have not discovered intelligence. What is more worrisome is that even with this limited capability, it can replace a lot of human beings in their jobs. What that tells us is we're not using the human potential properly. We're using them like cogs in the machine, like robots. And as I like to say, and then the real robots showed up.
Yes.
So we're like, well, so what you're talking about, which is what is consciousness, what is self, what is other. In fact, I just read a paper yesterday. Maybe they figured out where consciousness sits in the brain. What is presence? What is awareness? All these things are becoming so profoundly important. I've read papers after papers on this topic. There's research at MIT on it and other places where we're trying to figure out the essence of the human brain, the theory of the mind. So to me, this is where AI is going to chase us. And if it took AI to get us to go there, so be it. But this is where we need to go.
But do you think that we can just stop there without really making an effort for, let's say, the average person to kind of work harder on elevating his knowledge maturity to be able to do what you're saying?
The average person is us. I love the Ubuntu philosophy. Have you seen that? The Ubuntu philosophy. I am because we are.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a collective consciousness.
Yes. Yes.
There is no individual greatness here. I mean, it's not, if I suddenly discover something, big deal. It is when we collectively, with a shared consciousness, achieve something, that truly something is achieved. Without a doubt, it's all of us. AI is going to put a lot of people out of jobs, unfortunately. Collectively, we've sort of become a little bit smug and, we've sort of settled into a life. But then, the Earth's going to, the planet's going to hell, right? So we've all got to wake up. I wish it didn't take this, but I hope collectively we wake up and we find a new level.
I so much agree with that. That's why maybe I have opted to call it the Knowledge Mindfulness Framework, because I'm focusing there on the knowing process. Not all learning is part of it, but I feel learning is, like you said, is very much individualistic. So to put that social learning is a big part also of this equation. And then the third is applying all that in a responsible manner. It's so important, understanding the consequences of what we're doing. It's not about me or you. But what I see alarming, Sanjay, is the disinformation, the misinformation that's going on all around us, that is blurring the vision of that collective response we were talking about. Because not everyone can comprehend really what is the noise and what matters. And I feel that's a big, big problem that we are facing to achieve that collective kind of intelligence we need to respond to the world around us.
Oh, I agree completely. I mean, basically, we need an antivirus software for every human being.
Yes.
Because the virus is with information and it spreads fast. And that's critical thinking. That is saying, wait, no, I don't believe that. Prove it to me. Just that statement, prove it to me. Show me the facts. If we can just get everyone to say that, it would be a huge thing. But we have, again, created a system where you train people to robotically listen to messages. And now with the way media has gone, the people who can train, it's been sort of, anyone can train and you can build your own following. And we just need to liberate our brethren, brothers and sisters, so that I think they can listen and participate in the global consciousness. And I don't mean global consciousness in some sort of hippie way. I mean it in the sense that we're destroying the planet collectively. We're going to have to fix it collectively. I'm not a fan of Churchill, but he had a lot of good quotes, I must say. And one of them was, we either hang together or we hang separately.
Yes, definitely. When you were talking about facts, I come from a science background. I've always been factual. But what I found also very helpful is when we don't have enough facts, when there is that fogginess around us, what do we depend on? Our intuition. And that is also something that I see so important in teaching in business schools, in all schools, not even business schools. How do we strengthen intuition as a way to kind of integrate that with our critical thinking, especially in times that there's not enough information around us or there's a lot of fogginess? What do we depend on then? What do you think?
So, the human being, we are wonderful, but also quite flawed. We have biases, like confirmation bias. We have other biases. And what this disinformation does is it taps into these biases. There's a lot of research on the various human biases it taps into.
Yeah.
The problem with intuition is it's easily hijacked, because if you just tap into one of these biases, it takes over. So what I would I think you're saying the same thing. It's a form of informed higher intuition.
Yes.
You need to create. And then we're in good shape. I see this. I know my friends, they were like, nah, I don't believe that. They have good intuition. I think we need to make this the normal thing for everyone, right?
Yes. And also to have confidence. So sometimes you feel things, right? But to have the confidence to use it and to apply it to take a decision, or that's where sometimes is the scary part, right? Do I have the confidence to really use that intuition somehow? I think this is where I feel sometimes the thing is missing. But I see so much of, I'm an optimist, I'm a pessimist. What are you, Sanjay? Are you an optimist? Are you a pessimist?
I'm an optimist.
Or are you a realist?
I'm a skeptical optimist. How's that? I'm a skeptimist.
I like that because that for me equals realist.
Yeah, I look for the upside. Well,
Yeah.
I make sure it works, so.
Because that's hope. We need hope, right? We need that light at the end of the tunnel. So it goes to really what a famous writer said, to live in a time of great premises is to what? Experience both tragedy and comedy, in a way, with the immense revelation of understanding ourselves and the world. It's always that interplay of how much you want to form, right? You want to change and how much the world is changing. So I know you have so much on your plate again, and I really appreciate your time. But I leave with one last question. If you look back now to that 18-year-old sitting waiting for that entrance exam, Sanjay, what advice would you have for him now that you are where you are?
Be who you are.
Is it difficult to find that? It takes time.
The few times I tried to be someone who I was not, it was a mistake.
Yes. And I think hopefully each one or the younger generation would kind of find out who they are earlier than us in many ways, or me at least now. It's like,
I sort of made up who I was and I morphed to that. Who knows? But it worked.
Yes, that's what I see on that map I did for you. It's like, wow, I know I could see. But I will tell you one thing. I'll leave you with that, Sanjay. I think what really makes you a great, I call it knowledge mindful leader, I feel, because you do have those connections and interconnections between your head, your heart, and your soul. And why I say that, because I see it with your behavior, with, your actions, with what you're putting out in the world outside, and your interactions and relationships. Oh my God, I can't tell you. You really touch our hearts, you touch our lives, you have a great impact, and I thank you. And I'm looking forward to seeing more and more of your impact around us. Thank you so, so much, Sanjay, for your time. Thank you.
Laila, thank you for the great book. I think this is a great service. We needed to do it, so I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And that brings us to the end of this week's Knowledge Mindfulness Porch. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. If you have the time, we would really appreciate if you leave us a review so other amazing individuals like you can find us. Thank you for listening.
You have been listening to the Knowledge Mindfulness Porch with Laila Marouf. If you want to join the movement of knowledge mindfulness and shape the world of tomorrow, go to drlailamarouf.com. The Knowledge Mindfulness Porch is a production of Forbes Books.